Hello, this is Steve again, and I decided to kind of make another video on top of the two that I made the previous day. Normally I'm not this prolific, so this is kind of a rarity, but an interesting little thing has started circulating on my Facebook feed, and I figured I'd put my own little 2 cents into it in words rather than typing. And the story that's been going around is this idea of lab-grown, culture-based meat. And basically what it is you get the blood of a fetal cow, put it in culture, and voila, over a span of a few weeks or whatever, however long it takes, it turns into kind of a beef patty. It has very much the consistency of ground beef, and unfortunately, which really kind of disappoints me, a lot of my fellow vegans are actually supporting this, and they're going under the guise that, well, it's going to reduce the destruction and the killing and the victimization and whatnot, the violence against animals. And I find this kind of ironic, because the whole idea of being a vegan is to not wish harm or violence against any animal. So to say this is a good idea simply because there'll be lesser animals being killed is kind of counterintuitive. I mean, you're basically saying it's okay as long as only 5 cows are killed as opposed to 5,000. And to me, I don't see the logic in that. I mean, we've adopted a lifestyle where, or I shouldn't say a lifestyle, an ethical stance, as some people will say. I kind of call it a lifestyle, where we try not to kill animals. And so for me, supporting this is almost on the same level as supporting humanely grown, grass-fed, antibiotics-free organic beef. I mean, it's still the same nonsense. I mean, I don't care what people say. You're still putting a hole in a cow's head. You're still cutting its throat. It doesn't matter if it lived in a field or if it lived in a barn, whatever. You're still eating death. And that's how I'll always look at it. And so that's why I've never really supported this idea of this cultured lab-grown meat. I mean, this isn't a new idea, as some people are kind of getting a little gaga about. This has actually been around for 2 years. Started a couple years ago by a British company. They made a few beef patties for the cost of $300,000. Now, I'm sure one thing that's really helping is they're reducing the cost and reducing the gestation time. It took about 3 months originally. So yeah, there's that technology. It's getting better. It's getting closer. But here's my biggest reason for not supporting this, and the main reason for it is, meat eaters, they're still discerning about what they eat. And you really think that a bunch of lab-grown meat created by a bunch of geeks in white coats is going to replace an entire $200 billion industry? And I say $200 billion, that's combined between cattle and pork. So you really think that's going to fix that entire industry? You think that industry is going to go away overnight? I mean, no, it's not going to happen. And I think what will really happen with this lab-grown meat is it'll probably create another layer, and as opposed to like maybe a step above the cheapest of the cheapest ground beef, maybe a couple steps higher than that, who knows. But I think the meat industry will still exist fully, and in reality, what did you support? You just supported the continuation of the death and destruction of all these animals. So that's kind of how I look at it. And there's one good example of it. I mean, just think about sugar, refined sugar. I mean, I'm sure the guys that created Sweet and Low and Splenda and Stevia, I'm sure they all had grandiose dreams that they could overtake processed sugar. But guess what? Processed sugar is still around. It's still popular. Even when they put in raw sugar to kind of counteract processed sugar, it's still around. And that's how I kind of look at this lab-grown meat crap. And I'm just going to call it that, crap. I mean, it's not a solution. It's not a stopgap measure. It's just a continuation. The only solution really is still veganism. And if you ever have any doubts about it, I mean, look, this past week when I went to Denver, I went to a couple places. I never had this meat replacement called seitan, and for crying out loud, it tasted and looked like the same thing. And guess what? It's slightly healthier than actual meat. So, to me, I just think that's still the ultimate solution. That is still the best way to discontinue the violence against these animals and the violence against our own bodies, which is, meat is not necessarily great for you, regardless of what people say about protein and nutrients, whatever. You can get all these nutrients from plants, and you can get them in a much better and safer source from plants. So, to me, I'll never really support this whole idea of less killing as opposed to more killing, because in the end it's still killing. It's still violence. And regardless of what your mind is telling you that it's a victory for veganism, it's not. It's just a continuation of a certain way of life that hurts us in more ways than just our waistlines and our heart valves and our diabetes. I mean, it's still going to affect the environment. It's still going to create problems. And that's why I'll always go with the idea that meat or nothing. And you can kind of accuse me of being a little too rigid, being a little too uncompromising, but trust me, I mean, you got to try some of these replacements. Try them. I let some of my meat-eating family try them out, and they like it. So why do we want to waste this perfectly good resource that's already available to us? Granted, it's a little steep right now, but if you start buying into it, it'll get cheaper. And when we already have this resource, and you still want to eat this nasty, unhealthy alternative, and that's what I call meat, is an alternative, because I don't need it anymore. I mean, I still look fine. I feel fine without it. And so, don't be fooled by that hype. Don't be fooled by it. There's still better alternatives than lab-grown, lab-created meat. And you just need to go be a little adventurous, try it out, and just freaking go for it, Stop being this apologist. I mean, sometimes it's great to compromise, but not all things can be compromised. And that's how I feel about it in regards to this issue. And you can say whatever you want in the comment section, but trust me, you got to try some of the vegan friendly replacement stuff, and it'll change you. Trust me. So that's all I got to say about that. This video is already getting too darn long. I try to stay out of politics, but here I am doing sort of a political rant again. So anyway, hope you all have a good day. Say no to Frankenmeats. Say yes to the grain meats.